This recipe is sponsored by Squarespace. I'm bringing sexy beans. This is episode 1 of a series where I'll be showing some bean recipes that should excite even a meat eater such as myself. These I'm calling fire beans, and they're exactly what they sound like. Fresh, not dried lima beans, charred with extreme high heat and then enrobed in a red chili sauce. That sauce is a little much on its own, but just right if you have this with rice. Make your rice however you want, but here is my favorite way, which many people find objectionable, and I don't care. A little hot oil in a pot, dump in half a cup of dry, unwashed rice per person. For jasmine rice like I'm using here, that's like 90 grams per person. And then I'll stir and toast the rice over pretty high heat for a couple of minutes. The free starch coat that we did not wash away browns a little and tastes really good. This is the way you start risotto or paella. And now I go back to normal plain rice technique. Dump in 1.5 parts of water to 1 part rice by volume. No salt today because I'm going to have this with a heavily seasoned sauce, Asian style. Cover and bring to a boil. Hello. Reduce to a simmer and cover until the water is absorbed. Meanwhile, beans. About a pound, 454 grams of fresh, not dried lima beans. Butter beans, they're also called, all kinds of names. And you can find them fresh in late summer or in the freezer section all year long. The frozen ones are great. Dump them into plain water, cover, and bring to a boil, which takes a while. I'll eventually brown those in my widest cast iron. The wider, the better. And you don't have to do this, but I'm rubbing it down with a thin layer of oil so that I'll have a nice fresh seasoning coat after I preheat this in my outdoor gas grill. I'm putting the heat on full blast. You can totally cook this dish inside if you have a powerful stove and a really good ventilation system, but if you do it outside, all the smoke and the splatter stays outside. Close to trap the heat. All right, my beans are boiling. Reduce those to a simmer and just cook until they're tender, maybe 10 minutes. When the rice has sucked in all the water, I just turn off the heat and let it rest covered. 1 bunch of green onions, lose the roots, and then I'll just slice these up into rounds. The white and semi-white pieces are for the beans. The green pieces I will set aside for the sauce. Just slice those up until you get to the really dry, tattered parts at the end. Those are kind of stringy, just toss them. 1 fresh red chili, or 2 if you're feeling dangerous. Take out the seeds and the ribs if you want to limit the heat, or honestly, you can just stop slicing when you get near the top. A lot of the heat is up here. These go into the pile for the beans. Grab some ginger, a piece about yay big maybe. Cut the peel off. No big deal if you don't get it all off. I do think you want to slice it first against the grain of the fibers. Otherwise, you get these long, stringy fibers in your teeth. Chop that up and in the pile for the beans. A few cloves of garlic, peel and chop. Those go with the pile for the sauce. They'd burn with the beans. Also for the sauce, a handful of cilantro, or really any fresh herb you want. Thai basil would be super nice. And then the last thing for the sauce is a lime. Cut her in half for juicing. Let's fish out a bean and taste it real quick. They should be just tender. Be careful to not let them go too soft or they will turn to mush in the cast iron. Follow me on Instagram for more early drafts of recipes that look pre-digested. You want to drain these really thoroughly. Let them steam off a little. The drier they are on the surface, the more you'll be able to char them later. Okay, for sauce, I'm going to start with like 2 teaspoons of cornstarch and disperse that in a tiny splash of soy sauce or water, whichever is nearby. You can stir out the lumps much easier when it's a super thick slurry. Now my new favorite thing, which is gochujang, Korean fermented chili paste. Any chili paste would work, and I'm going to use like a 1/4 cup of it, a giant scoop. If you want this less spicy, you could replace some or all of this paste with ketchup. I won't tell. Now I'll put in a roughly equal quantity of soy sauce. This is 60 mils or so. That's a lot, but it's the only source of salt in this entire dish, including the rice. Then the lime juice. You could just use half a lime if you don't want it too acidic. I like the whole lime. All of this stuff goes in, the cilantro, onion greens, garlic. I'll get that stirred in so that I can more easily measure the water by displacement. Enough water to give you like 1 1/4 cups total sauce, like 300 mils of sauce. It should look a little watery at this stage. Remember, it has the cornstarch, so it's going to thicken. Oh, and you can put in a teaspoon or 2 of sugar if you want. It'll balance the heat. We need to mix the beans up in something, and this is already dirty, so there we go. In goes the onions, chili, and ginger, and then enough enough oil to make everything glisten. I'm oiling the food, not the pan, because the pan is so hot that a film of oil would probably burst into flames. If you think it's weird for me to be using olive oil with all of these Asian flavors, just know that I don't care. Olive oil is good. I use it for basically everything but chocolate cake. Get every bean coated. All right, now I only have 2 things to carry out to the grill. Nice. Let's look at our pan. White hot and not still smoking very much, which is good. If it was still smoking a lot, that would mean my fresh seasoning coat has not formed yet. You got to get all that stuff burned off. And now keep your distance and just splash in the beans. I will spread them out a little bit, but I will not stir them, not yet. I want them to char on the bottom while there's still a ton of heat in the pan and not very much water leaking out yet. Once the water starts leaking out of the food, it's going to steal the heat. This step in my process I've taken from an excellent restaurant in Louisville, Kentucky called Mayan Cafe. They have a different charred lima bean dish that's one of the best things I've ever had. You should go there and get it. And as you can see, we've got some nice char on the beans, but they're not incinerated, so perfect. I'll stir things around now just to make sure that the onions and the chili get cooked. There really won't be any more browning of the beans because water is coming out of the veg now, and that's stealing the heat. 2 minutes after everything went in, I'll pour in my sauce. The cornstarch should pretty much gelatinize on impact at these temperatures. Just stir for a minute or 2 until the sauce has almost reduced to a texture you like. You got to account for further evaporation that'll occur before you actually start eating. Make sure you've got heavy, dry oven mitts. This pan is extremely hot. Look, already the sauce is a little too thick. You can always water it down. And now that it's in the house, I'll taste it to see if it needs more of anything. There's my clumpy, toasty rice that some people consider heretical. Make your rice how you want, but don't knock different things until you've tried them. And slop those babies on. Hot, sweet, sour, smoky, umami-y. It's all there, and I love the creamy texture that fresh green lima beans have on the inside. It's also a super meaty texture, which makes this a very satisfying main dish, full of protein and fiber. And it's inexpensive for what you get, just like Squarespace, the sponsor of this video. In fact, some things Squarespace does for you, they'll do for free. Check out their new bio site builder. If the only website you need to make is a one-page bio with a few links to the things you do, well, you can create one for free now at squarespace.com. Throw in a photo, link out to your social accounts, maybe some projects you're involved with, and boom, free bio site. Of course, if and when you need to build something bigger, Squarespace is there for you. Everything from a scheduler where people can make appointments with you, to a restaurant site, to a big online store where you can take people's payments and manage your inventory. Everything you could possibly need for a website is here, and you can start building one for free. When you're ready to pay for a custom domain or to publish your site, remember the guy who made beans sexy again and use code Ragusia at checkout. You'll save 10%. Thank you, Squarespace. If sexy beans never left, then why everybody on my